everyone, my name is Alex and this is Zombie Side Up. Today we are going to be creating Bullet Brigade from 10 Hun TCG. Here's a quick peek at what the bullet ants look like, but before we get to those, we need to create the display case. For the display case, I'm going to use this one that I got from Michaels. It is made for displaying softballs, I believe, but it works really good for many other purposes. I'm going to, before I do anything else, come up with a plan, and I just simply get a piece of paper and sketch out what I think it should look like. This actually ends up being pretty close to the finished product, so it's definitely worth it to take your time and sketch it out. Now my plan is to create a frame that I can sculpt on top of that can be removed from the clear shell of the display case. And to do that, I use this PVC board that I found at Michaels. It is a firm board that can be easily cut and can hold its shape very well. As you can see here, after cutting, I decided to use hot glue to glue these boards together, mainly because I don't have the patience for anything else. I wanted to get straight onto the fun stuff, which is actually creating the diorama, so hot glue works really well. After hot gluing the boards together, I then decided to glue it onto the black base of the display case, because I knew it would be really easy to take off the clear part of the display case when I need to display it on its own. Then it was finally time to start working on the diorama itself. I first started by bulking up the hill using aluminum foil, which is a cheaper alternative to using just a bunch of the more expensive materials, which include the Drydex Heavyweight Spackle. This stuff is perfect for models because one, it doesn't do anything to your skin. It can get on it and it just dries off and rolls off. It dries really firm and it has a pretty good working time. And I really love using it for all sorts of terrain, including the dirt found in this diorama. Now, one thing I did was, of course, smear it around all of the tinfoil and also onto the base, but I also use it to bulk up areas that I didn't do with tinfoil. For example, the little rim around that pond that I'm going to add later. Then, while the drywall mud is still wet, I'm going to put this lichen-covered log that I pre-cut onto the drywall mud to hold it in place and get a good idea of what the diorama is going to look like. Then we get to my favorite part of this diorama, or second favorite. I'm going to add on the mud, which is going to really tie everything together. To do this, I'm going to start with some Mod Podge matte white, sand, which it doesn't matter what color the sand is, we're going to paint it. Then I'm going to add in some really dark brown as well as some black, which you don't see on camera. Once I mix it together, I'm going to apply it all over the diorama to help create that dirt effect. Once the Mod Podge was fully dried, I painted on a different shade of brown to break up the monotony of the base color. The next step was painting the inside walls of the frame that were showing a really dark black brown, and then painting the edges and outside walls of the frame black. Once that was dry, I added on a dark green, and then I used some different shades of green to mix up that color. The next step was a fun step, and that is adding on the vegetation. At this point in the diorama, it was a little too brown, and I was hoping that a little dash of green everywhere would help to really pull it together. So I ended up not using the ferns or some of that shrubbery you can put on trees, but I did end up using the fake leaves and these different plants that, if you can believe it, come from Real Life Book Nooks, which I've been getting into recently. They are pretty cool, and they always have a bunch of extra plants left over. These happen to be the perfect scale to be next to the ants, and so I used pretty much every single one I had to beef up this diorama and make it look as realistic as possible. Then, to make the leaves stick down onto the diorama, I made a watered down Mod Podge solution, which is really easy to do. I never measure anything, I just get some water, pour some Mod Podge in there, and then use a pipette to put drops over all the leaves. It looks white, but I promise you it does dry clear. It does look kind of shiny, but I was going for a really kind of like a muddy, wet environment, and so that shiny actually worked in our favor. And you'll also see I create another solution of that dirt Mod Podge that I could put under the plants where they have that little ugly area that doesn't look too realistic. And after all this time, it was finally time for the resin, which is always my favorite part in any creation. You can also see on the bottom, all of the white Mod Podge has disappeared and has become clear. Now all you can see are the leaves. Anyways, I suggest waiting a good amount of time because if I was to rush this, it's possible that the Mod Podge had not fully dried yet and it could become cloudy under the resin, which we would not want that. So I made sure to give it plenty of time. And that comes to another point. This project took plenty of days just simply waiting for stuff to dry. And so that's something to consider when you're making something like this. You don't want to rush it. Don't go into it thinking you're going to rush it. But I used a toothpick to smooth the resin around and make it look more like a realistic little puddle, and then I cured it with a UV light. Now that the diorama was finished, it was time to work on the bullet ants. So here you can see I unpinned them all, and I put them inside of this container, which is called a relaxation chamber. What I do is I put a bunch of warm water on paper towels, drop the ants in there, and within a day, they're posable again. So to put them on the stand, it was a simple process. I would drill a hole using my thinnest drill bit with this resin drill, and then I would just poke them into it. From there, I would slide the ants all the way down until they got to a good level, and then I would pose their legs. It worked really good, and I did not need to use any pins to hold the legs down. However, sometimes I did need to use some tacky glue, which thankfully dries clear. As you can see throughout this montage, they ended up looking really good, and so just make sure to take your time. And then the last thing I would do is cut the pin all the way down to where it hits the body. There I didn't because I was cutting it on camera, and I wanted to show you the process of cutting it, but I did not want to risk cutting it that low when I can't really see the ants because the camera is in the way. So anyways, let's see what all the other bullet ants look like. All right, and there it is. Bullet Brigade from 10 Hunt TCG. This is the stackable card, and it is from the jungle biome, and it is really cool. I knew I had to create it, and I'm glad I did because I just love how this turned out. So hopefully you guys picked up some information from this video that you found useful, and if you do end up wanting to create your own dioramas, feel free to ask any questions you have down in the comment section below, and I think that's just about it for today's video. Now, before we sign off, real quick, I do want to show you what the final picture looks like for this. I tried to take it from an angle that looks good. I tried to edit it down to card size in case I wanted to throw it in a card template, which I ended up doing. So here is the finished photo I took, and here is what it looks like in the card template. What's nice about this one, I don't have to edit much at all because it's all there. I don't have to throw in a background. It's the bullet ants and their background all put together, which is very convenient for me. So I'm really happy with that. But this will definitely be going on display next to my other two 10 Hunt TCG creations. I have already created Gila Gila and Wordungur, and now that I have Bullet Brigade, that's 3. And then I will be working on a 4th one pretty much once this video is out. And I will give you one hint. It is from the ocean biome, so then I will hopefully finish that one soon and get that out to you guys. But with that being said, thanks for checking out this video. Thanks for making it all the way through, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.